Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to Arbitrary 20. In this video we're going to be making a duelist or a fencer type character that goes in and out of melee. It's going to be focused on sustained damage, and a lot of that damage is going to be concentrated on their first hit each turn, as well as on their reaction attacks they should be able to get pretty consistently. So let's go ahead and get started with the race. We're going to be going with variant human. Custom lineage could work as well, but I'd rather have the 2+1s in this case over the single +2. But as usual, we're mainly here for that free feat, and we're going to go with Polar Master. This build will be a bit unique in that in the first half of the build, levels 1 through 10, we'll be using the bonus action to attack with Polar Master, but from level 11 onward we'll be exclusively using the second bullet point to get opportunity attacks when enemies approach us. And for our ability scores, assuming point buy, we'll have a strength of 13, a dexterity of 13 plus 1 from our race for a total of 14, a constitution of 14, an intelligence of 8, a wisdom of 9, and a charisma of 15 plus 1 from our race for a total of 16. And if you're rolling for ability scores, I would prioritize charisma first, constitution second, dexterity third, and strength fourth. And for our ideal equipment, we're going to want a quarterstaff as our main weapon for levels 1 through 10, but once we get to 11 and higher, we want a rapier as well. And then you'll want some half plate armor, a shield also for just those first 10 levels, and then you'll want to have a longbow and or some daggers for when you get stuck at range. And now on to level 1, we're going to be starting off Warlock here, our otherworldly patron being Hexblade. We are yet another build that dips Hexblade for medium armor, shields, and the ability to attack with charisma on one of our weapons. We'll also get Hexblade's Curse, which is a nice single target damage bonus. And lastly, for our 2 Warlock spells, I would grab Armor of Agathis and Shield. Armor of Agathis is a nice defensive spell you can set up before a combat that'll also deal some damage back to your enemies, and then Shield is probably the best reaction defensive spell in the game. And then moving on to levels 2 through 8, we'll be taking 7 levels of Paladin here. To start off, for our spells that we'll get in that time, we'll get first and second level spells, and some of the ones I would recommend are Bless, Command, Aid, and Find Steed. After a certain point in the build, you'll probably not want to ride the steed and just use your own movement, but it still can just be used as a companion to fight with you and your party. And then we'll get Divine Smite. I would usually just save this for crits unless you really need that extra damage. Then we'll get our Sacred Oath. We're going to go with the Oath of Vengeance. A lot of the oath spells are pretty nice. Hunter's Mark, Misty Step, and Hold Person will all be useful in various situations. We'll get the Vow of Enmity, Channel Divinity option, which is another really nice single target damage boost. And then the thing we're here for is Relentless Avenger at level 7. This is one of the key features of the build, especially once we reach level 11, and that's when I'll explain it. And then at Paladin level 4, we'll get an ability score increase or feat, and we're going to go with Sentinel. For now, this will just be a nice way to get some reaction attacks and stop our enemies from moving away from us, but it'll get a lot more interesting once we reach level 11. And then at level 5, we'll get extra attack, and finally at level 6, we'll get Aura of Protection, being one of the best defensive features in the entire game. And then on to levels 9 through 11, we'll be taking 3 levels of Rogue. We'll get Sneak Attack with consistent reaction attacks. We should be able to get this twice on most rounds, which will be really nice. And then for Expertise, I would be sure to get Athletics or Acrobatics to avoid grapples, and you can pick whatever you'd like for the second choice. And then at Rogue level 2, we'll get Cunning Action. The main ones we'll probably be using are Dash and Disengage. Both will be useful for getting in and out of melee. And then at level 3, we'll get our Roguish Archetype, and we're going to be going with Swashbuckler. First up, we'll get Fancy Footwork, which is pretty much a free disengage against a creature when we make a melee attack against them. And then we'll also get Rakish Audacity. This gives us an additional way to use our sneak attack, and it lets us add our charisma to our initiative rolls. And that's level 11. We'll go over our tactics here, as they're going to change a lot from just using the quarterstaff with Polar Master and a shield. So now you want to put that shield away. You'll want to have just your rapier in your main hand, your offhand free with your quarterstaff stowed at your side. You'll start off by running up to an enemy, preferably one that does melee attacks. If you'd like to use a bonus action like Hunter's Mark, Vow of Enmity, or Hexblade's Curse, you can. Then you'll make 2 attacks with the rapier, which will now be your hex weapon instead of the quarterstaff. Apply a sneak attack on your first attack that hits, then use Fancy Footwork to move 5 to 10 feet away from the enemy and pull out your quarterstaff in your offhand. And if your GM allows, you can do a little bit of roleplay to try to taunt that enemy to come towards you. On their turn, if they run up to you, you can make an opportunity attack against them using the Polar Master feat, since you're holding a quarterstaff, but you'll make the attack using your rapier. rapier. If you hit, you can apply a sneak attack again and use the sentinel feat to make their speed 0. Then you can use your relentless avenger to move half your speed away from them. This pretty much leaves them a sitting duck with 0 speed in the middle of the battlefield. If they do have a ranged attack, this won't be quite as good, but oftentimes enemies' melee attacks are stronger than their ranged attacks. And this will pretty much be our new strategy for the rest of this character's career. And then I'll put our DPR up on the screen now using that strategy in a few different situations. You can pause if you'd like to read it. And then finally, for levels 12 through 20, we're just going to finish out Rogue here. We'll get 4 ability score increases or feats in that time. First, I would take Fey Touched, get a +1 to Charisma, and then pick up the Gift of Alacrity or Silvery Barb spell. And I would take the Telekinetic feat to get another +1 to Charisma. With this, we can use our bonus action to push an enemy out of melee or bring an enemy into melee with us. And then next, I would take a +2 to Charisma just to get that to 20. And then lastly, I would take Alert or Lucky. Alert just being a nice way to boost our initiative, and Lucky could help with pretty much whatever kind of roll you want. I would save it for some important saving throws or maybe a really important attack roll. And then we'll get Uncanny Dodge and Evasion, both some really nice defensive boosts from Rogue. And then we'll get Panache from Swashbuckler. It's a decent feature for both in combat and roleplay situations. The nice thing is that it's a check and not a save, so legendary resistance isn't an issue for it. And then lastly, we'll get Reliable Talent, just being a nice utility feature from Rogue. And now I'll put up our DPR here at level 20 if you'd like to take a look. But that's all I have for this video. If you'd like to check out my last build guide, which was a Sorcerer Warlock multi-class that was completely focused on forced movement, you can check that out right here. Either way, thank you guys for watching. Hope you have an awesome rest of your day, and we'll see you in the next one.